Good morning, everyone. This is the Vermont House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. Again, Wednesday, April 15th, 2026 at 10:53 in the morning. We have the whole committee with us now, so I think it's time to move S-198 onto its next discovery. So I would entertain a motion to report favorably on S-198 draft 1.3.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Representative Granning, seconded by Representative Carrots Duncan. Is there any further discussion? And I just want the committee to know this is not the final journey for this bill. Human Services will get it next. We'll move that over to them this afternoon. But it also will have a drive-by with government operations, and I know Ways and Means will have to take a look at it too, because of fees. 3 other places it needs to go in order to make it through. And so, my understanding is that discussion of protection will be talked about strongly up in Human Services. So I agree with you, Tony. I think we all agree that we need to make sure that anyone that's under 21, they're possessing these, we need to make sure that they get confiscated, that they are in legal. This passive would be illegal, and otherwise we're going against our laws.
We did a good job staying in our lane.
Yes, we stayed in our lane, dealt with consumer protection aspect of this bill, and now we leave it up to our experts. Services can deal with the rest of it. So. With that, the clerk can call the roll.
Rep Bosch.
Yes.
Rep Booton.
Yep.
Rep Karasunkin.
Yep.
Rep Cooper.
Yes.
Rep Duke.
Yes.
Rep Mickless.
Yes.
Rep Olson.
Yes.
Rep Priestley, yes. Rep White.
Yes.
Rep Granning.
Yes.
Rep Markgraf.
Yes. 0. Okay, who would like to report?
I'll report if he wants to.
I'm always willing, but anyone else is
Yeah,
fine
I'm
too.
always-
We saved you for the DFR bills.
Yeah, sorry, boy. ACC.
You know, the 600-page ones.
Heck, doesn't have short, long, I don't care.
So we will move over. Jen, thank you. Rose, thank you. Hannah, thank you. Thank you for all the advocates who will you'll be a strong voice up in Human Services.
All right, thanks for your time.
What we should do one of these days, when we're, doing one of those large bills, just say, here's the bill, it's in front of you, you get questions? And just leave it at that and see what happens.
Violating all sorts of programs.
That's okay.
So-
We're not already courthouse, it's fine.
There was a lot.
Sophie's here, so we'll start now with 173. Sophie, you can join us when you're ready.
To log into the meeting.
Sure.
Okay. For the voice.
Hoping we're at 20 feet of buffer.
For the record.
Yeah, for the record.
Remember, we're still on law.
Did you want to wait for folks to come back?
No, I think
Okay.
we'll get started and hopefully they can jump in.
So please adapt me for the office of the city council. I'm gonna walk through draft 1.2 of S-173.
73. Yes, something.
So I'm not gonna walk through the whole bill, I'm just gonna go through what the changes are.
Okay.
So this is a bill, S-173 came over from the Senate as a bill focused on vocational rehabilitation. There were some proposed changes, including removing the initial screening for voc rehab claimants. And then there was also the creation of a working group. So there aren't too many changes to the vocational rehabilitation piece. Just a couple of little ones. This is on the working group. So before we had in here, as it came over from the Senate, was the director of occupational health and safety would be on the working group. And this has now been switched to be the Commissioner of Labor or designee. So the Commissioner of Labor can pick the director of workers. Yeah, I guess it would be workers' compensation. If they so choose, but it would be the commissioner. And I know there was also discussion in the committee about whether this should be overseen by the Department of Labor, given, you know, workers' compensation is in the Department of Labor. But for now, this was the one change there, and then a corresponding change
Okay,
further down on the meeting. So when the bill came over from the Senate, it wasn't explicit that the Department of Labor representative would be the chair of the working group. So this now just adds in that the Commissioner of the Department of Labor or their designee would serve as the chair of the working group. And again, that's something the committee may have other thoughts on moving forward. So those are the only two changes on S-173 as it came over from the Senate.
so discussions on. Let's talk about this first. I think there's been some thoughts. I know DFR actually would like to be part of this because they do have regulatory authority over workers' compensation insurance. And I again I'm fine with myself letting Department of Labor kind of run this working group, but I do have concerns that because the Senate didn't take any testimony from Higher Ability or voc rehab on the pre-screening, and that there is the thought of removing of repealing pre-screenings before we really have a chance to really understand if they work or not. And it was supported by Department of Labor and in the Senate. I would be more comfortable with adding a House and a Senate member to this study. And so I'm just wondering what the committee, what you all think by adding one member from the House, one member from the Senate, and from the relevant committee.
No problem with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we could do that, so one member from Commerce and this came out of Economic Development.
Yes.
What we'd be doing with the screening, you started out by talking about screening.
So this is the working group,
Right.
adding DFR, adding a member of the House, a member of the Senate.
Sure.
But
But,
then,
okay,
so I think it gets us. The next question is on the pre-screen. So are we in favor at this moment of repealing the pre-screening? Or do we add language into the study that asks this working group to look at the pre-screens, whether or not they're relevant, whether or not they actually work? It's the pre-screenings is a hindrance to employees getting VR. Those are the types of things I would think of, but I don't think this question's been answered yet. I think there's some issues in hireability with oversight, making sure that, and two things need to change, so I think there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen before we just say no, pre-screenings are.
Okay.
I know we've heard some instances where there's been issues. I think we've heard instances, there have been instances, issues with VR as well. We've heard both of them, so.
Yeah, I don't have a firm grasp on the different groups, and it sounds like there's disagreement. My big issue is how to get both rehab to workers as soon as possible. And I guess I'm not,
I think that's in the study now.
yeah, I need to find that language. And I guess to your point, I'm not real clear. Initially, I thought, well, the pre-screening seems like an impediment to that.
Mhm.
But I guess there's some dispute about that, and I don't have the expertise to make a judgment about that.
And I think, some of the problem is getting information from from the doctor. I think some of the problem also is the department right now is going through an update of what reimbursement rates would be. I know that's like 4 years overdue, but it's happening now. I think that's some of the problem with finding doctors that actually want to deal with workers' compensation. So I think there's a lot of things that are going on in workers' compensation now that I think need to be really looked at. And I think the overall goal is to make sure that injured workers are able to get back to earning money as soon as
Right.
possible.
That's certainly a tough one for me because I feel like I've only heard one side of the story. I mean, we've had plenty of testimony about how much this is a hindrance, but so either it really is a hindrance or the people on the other side haven't really spoke, and that's where I'm really struggling. I mean, as a philosophy, the less overhead, the better, and the faster we can get these people into rehab and back to work. But on the other hand, there may be a very valid reason for having this pre-screen because, I mean, let's face it, those insurance companies that could be potentially paying money out for the rest of that worker's life, it's in their best interest for them not to get that rehab money. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence.
Well, I think that's what the study is gonna, help us figure out. Okay.
Okay, I mean, well, it does seem like there are, even without that pre-screening, there still are opportunities for entities to object to that circumstance, to seek remedy to not have that outcome that you articulated. I'm not sure I can really feel comfortable with a form that asks 3 questions and that goes to people that cannot count to 2. And like that's, or just make a mistake that can't be remedied. And to have people tumble into, end up living in hotels is disastrous. And one anecdote is, there's one, and I mean, it is hard to get a sense of the scope of the problem. It seems unlikely that you would have something happen 2 or 3 or 4 times that's going to come back every 3 months or something like that. But it is, I noted that it seemed like there was a physician who was engaged with that process, which is a matter of clearance. The challenge appeared to be in the proceeding from one phase into the next phase. And so I wouldn't mind hearing more, but I guess if it's time to let a group do the work, get that testimony, you might say, through the process of a working committee, right, that may be the right time. I hope that they hear the story that we heard again. And I hope they hear more.
Maybe one of the questions we need the working group is the pre-screening form.
Yeah,
Should it be upgraded? Should we be relying on 3 questions? And how many times are 2 of the questions answered and still pre-screening continues to move on instead of going directly to VR counsel?
yeah, I agree. I think something could go in the study very specifically saying, review the system of referral, right? Pre-screening, the questions.
Yes.
How does referral happen? Because I agree with what Rep. Cooper said, is that questionnaire is in some ways meaningless, right? Like the questions asked and like extremely subjective and unclear. So I would support it, keeping the pre-screening if there's a piece of the study that very specifically calls out, we're looking at that system of referral and look at the questions and.
I wonder if we can ask hireability right now to review all of the pre-screened people in process. Any one of those, to ensure that those forms are accurate right now, so that we know that we're not sending more people in limbo today.
It's a good idea.
And I don't know that that's necessarily part of this law, but we write a letter to them
Yeah.
that requested or, something.
Yeah,
that
I had some discussions with them last week about this. There were two instances that we saw where, it's plain that it says that 2 of the 3 questions are answered no, then they move on. The 2 that we saw, they were not moved on, and one of them was sent by hireability to us. And so the question was, why didn't they move on? And I think because they didn't receive any information on their medical condition, so they didn't move them on. But that's not what it says. You're supposed to move them on if 2 of the 3 answers, at least 2 of the 3 answers are no. So I think they're looking into that now to find out why that's happening. But I think it's a question. No, is that pre-screening adequate?
I like that idea of sending them a letter now and asking them to review all the cases and increase oversight and review those questions. And I mean, they could maybe, I don't know if those questions is that rule? Could they just change them change the form?
If the questions are in the rule.
Or
And the rules are developed by Department of Labor, right? So, and I think that's another question is where is the oversight of the pre-screening? Where does the oversight of VR counselors? Where does that fall? And how can we strengthen the oversight to make sure that the system is working the way it's supposed to?
Yeah, I like that idea of like a near term, let's improve things within the system and then have a study with a more systemic look.
Yeah, it's really concerning when we have an attorney that comes in that represents injured workers. It says that, they know who the good VR counselors are.
Yep.
And so in my opinion, they all should be good counselors. And then when we have issues with pre-screenings, and why are people still sitting in pre-screening 18 months after they've been in there? So, and you need to understand some of it may be oversight, some of it is the system itself with not being able to get medical records on time. Some of it may fall with the insurer. Some of it may fall with the medical field. So I think really digging into this whole system is warranted to make sure that we're paying for something that is really helping everybody, helps the employer get their employee back and helps the injured worker so that they're not left in limbo and they can earn a living and get back to work. And then it helps the system by making sure we're doing everything we can without increasing it, and that we're spending the money in in the right way and that we're not just throwing money out the door with no results coming from it.
Yeah. I agree, Ken. The core issue for me is how do we get them in the voc rehab as soon as we can so we can get back?
Yep.
And then all these other, just framing how we want to phrase a
Yeah.
question. It starts with that, I think, core issue, and then then lists, some of the things that, is the form, whether it's the time limit, whatever it is, a screening, lists all of those things that we'd like this work group to consider, all with the goal towards getting people back to work.
And you just had it up there. The first 4 questions are all about how do we get more money to people who are out of work, not how do we get people who are out of work, what the services that they need to be whole.
Yeah.
Right? Like money is part of it, but it's not.
Getting a job that's gonna pay,
So-
afford a
Yeah,
living
There's
is.
nothing in there that says.
Yeah.
That gets to your,
Like another piece, another thing that we want to make sure happens is that injured workers, from the time that they file, have been notified of their rights. And that's given to them in plain English. So that they can so an injured worker can understand what their rights are, that they have the right to go to VR, they have a right to all the rights that they have. So that ultimately, if they're comfortable, they can go down the road by themselves without an attorney. But also if need be, they also have the right to hire an attorney.
I think that's super important. Yeah, I think anytime anyone's injured, they should get some packet in the mail that says, hey, you've been injured. Here's a list of your rights.
Yeah.
And how to take advantage of them.
That also should be on the doctor's office.
So we all in agreement to right now hold off on the repeal of pre-screening and include that in the to the working group. We're all in agreement to add a House member, Senate member from the relevant committees and to add DFR into the.
And I'd like to see that question that we just talked about, added to that list.
You know, I think Sophie's been writing down
I'm sure she
what
has.
we've been discussing, so we're gonna leave it up to Sophie now to figure it out.
So one of the other things you talked about before was understanding what other states do if they do an
Yeah.
initial screening. I did do a very quick check and it looks like Vermont is the only one that has a formal requirement for an initial screening. And again, the workers' comp systems are all pretty different state by state. Missouri does have a sort of initial screening, but it's not through a third party the way it is here. It's just the employer and the worker sort of working together to determine whether or not voc rehab is needed. But
But that could be another good question too, to look at, what are other jurisdictions doing?
the other thing I wanted to add was that currently under the rules, the employee can request vocational rehabilitation services early on. You know, they don't have to wait for the
Yeah.
90 days, et cetera. So
But I think that's something that we want outlined in a packet that would go to the employee, the injured employee, so that they do know their rights. Do we have enough? Do you have enough? Okay,
so I have put in H 803.
Yep.
So, and I don't know how familiar you are with 803, but there were a couple of changes.
Okay.
That were made yesterday, so is it okay if I just go straight to those?
Yep.
Okay. So this is all added in. So those watching online, I hope no one gets motion, so. So my understanding is this, the changes came from the Department of Labour, so this is under section 1124, subsection B. A youth apprenticeship program may be registered by the department after a regional CTE centre submits the following information, and then it just adds to the department. And then there's a list of the things that need to be in, list of the information that needs to be provided. Just added as cost of those missing. And then under section 11, it just reframes, there was already a deletion of the current language that's deleted there, but the additional language has changed a tiny bit. And this now says the procedure for advanced standing that grants credit for demonstrated competency, acquired experience, training, or skills to youth who are interested in transferring to full apprenticeship registration upon completion of the youth apprenticeship program. So those were the only changes. Sorry, I can make it a bit smaller so you can see it all on one.
Rick?
Rick Sagel, Office with Legislative Council. So 803 is my section of this bill that Sophie placed into 173. My understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that there was a question as to the previously proposed language in 11, that it wasn't clear what advanced standing and credit, there was maybe some confusion. Wanted to be clear about what they must provide to the department. And I drafted this language, which I think hopefully clarifies what is required of the CTE centers. So happy to make any changes that you all think is necessary, if it's still not clear.
Showing again the procedure for advanced standing that grants credit for demonstrated competency, acquired experience, training, or skills to youth who are interested in transferring to full apprenticeship registration upon completion of the youth apprenticeship program.
And advanced standing is a defined term in this chapter, so if there's a question as to what that is, then that is defined. I'm not sure it's in this bill because it's not being amended, but you can find it in chapter 13 of Title 21.
And
The only other change was that, again, if this was to move forward, was just to change the name of the bill, because right now it just talks about vocational rehabilitation, so just that after passage, it would be an act relating to vocational rehabilitation and apprenticeships.
questions on this piece?
I have a question.
You have a question?
Anyone else has a question? There is discussion about adding a culinary pilot program to the apprenticeship. Now,
We'll do that in frequency.
that's my statement, is that the plan is put on, so, okay, just want to clarify.
Okay. Anything else for Sophie? Rowan, is there anything we missed, or is anything that? Okay, so Sophie, if you can make those changes, and when do you do that? And
I'm quite busy today, but hopefully tomorrow I'll work on the things. Just make promising stuff, because as soon as I do, then something else comes up and it's like, okay, sorry, I'm not gonna get to that. But I will do it as quickly as I can.
Okay, yeah, just let us know, maybe Friday afternoon we can.
Friday afternoon, I won't be here. I'm grabbing it and I need to visit her boss.
Good for you, congratulations.
So I'll be here in the morning, but I'll be leaving probably 1:30. Right.
Let's shoot for. Want to make sure you have enough time to do the changes. Let's see what we can do if we're off the floor. Early enough Friday morning, we'll take it up. We're gonna be on the floor for quite a while tomorrow. Do you think you have time to be finished drafting by late tomorrow afternoon?
Yes, I'm sure.
So we'll set something up to have you come in with us Thursday after the floor. If time permits, if it's past 4:30, then we'll push it off to Friday.
And I'm currently open all tomorrow afternoon.
Okay. Just wait on that. Great, thank you, Sophie.
You don't have, yeah, daily.
Friday morning?
We do,
I thought they were gone.
no, they got 2 more weeks.
Yeah.
This weekend. Good. Maybe.
That's what I'm.
Had it. Generally here, that we could give them the floor. To check with Haley to see if she can do it 9 o'clock Friday morning.
If it doesn't work.
If it
on
doesn't
Thursday.
work Thursday, but we'll figure that out. I mean, so. Been much more efficient. About we would be, so. We don't have anything else scheduled for the rest of the day. So,
Time on my hands is not good.
Let's go write another.
we will be back here after the floor. To have more discussions on 327. So with that, if there's no questions, we can go off live and we'll be back after the floor.